News Radio 1120, KMOX. Hello, everyone. Rob Carson filling in. It's been a little while. It's really, really good to be back on the radio on this glorious, glorious radio station. Cardinals win again. Holy heck. 80 victories. That's awesome. And a lot of other things happening. I know everybody has this story on their mind today. I know it weighs heavy on many of us. And that is the distemper scare among raccoons, which are, kind of, I guess, rodents in South St. Louis. Right? Isn't that everybody's talking about? The distemper scare? Because I'm worried. I've got 3 dogs. I've got little dogs, smaller than raccoons, kind of concerned. No, you know what? You know what we're talking about? We're talking about, here's the thing. Don't get in the way of white people when they're going to see Billy Joel. That's what we are talking about tonight. If you can protest anything, you might be able to get U2 to cancel. You might be able to get Ed Sheeran to cancel. But by gosh, you do not get in the way of white people when they want to see Billy Joel. Of course, I'm saying that tongue in cheek. There was some protestation happening this evening. And then, by the way, if you're coming home from the concert, I'd love to hear not only your impressions of what happened before the concert, if you were down there, if you saw any protesting and whatnot, and also how was the show? How was the show? I've seen Billy Joel a couple of times. Fantastic show. I would imagine it was quite warm in the seats tonight. Unseasonably high temperatures. It looks like, tomorrow you got the heat wave going. Down to 73, 95 tomorrow. I have sat in ballparks when it's that hot. It's not terribly comfortable, but I'm sure it was pretty hot in the Cardinal Stadium tonight. I'm sure it was a good show. Mark Reardon, I heard him talking earlier today. He was talking with the guy who plays with Billy Joel, and he wanted to hear this song. I didn't even know the song that he wanted Billy Joel to play. The one that I wanted him to play, and I actually heard it on a Channel 4 report in the background. This one right here. It's my favorite song.
In every heart there is a room.
It's called And So It Goes. I love this song.
A sanctuary safe and strong.
Yeah.
To heal the wounds from lovers past until a new one comes along.
And I know there's a lot of songs by Billy Joel that are, Uptown Girl, Piano Man, and then, of course, that's just one I like. So your phone calls are welcome. Did you see anything happen? But white allies marched on the concert tonight. There were a bunch of white people who, want to, I guess, not feel guilty about being white. So they made it down there tonight. Your thoughts, 314-436-7900, 1-800-925-1120. And we'll throw in some reviews of the concert as well. Okay? But, of course, here's what happened before the show.
Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter!
Hundreds of protesters in downtown streets in St. Louis trying to disrupt tonight's Billy Joel concert at Busch. The crowd created some challenges for people just trying to get into the show.
Yeah. Our cameras captured people making their way through the crowd of protesters, showing their tickets to police, who escorted them beyond the barricades. Some told us they knew this might happen, so they arrived early.
Black Lives Matter!
Yeah, you know what happens? You go to a concert, and then there's the protests. But that apparently tonight it was white allies, mostly white protesters, gathering downtown. Chanting, and this is a brand new one, by the way. White silence is violence. That's at Berkeley. At Berkeley with Ben Shapiro last week, they started talking about how speech is violence. Speech is violence. So these talking points get out pretty quickly, and then they become chants. So tonight. And I'd like to know your thoughts on all of this at 314-436-7900, 1-800-925-1120. White silence is violence, and no justice, no profits. That's what's happening. So here we go again. We've got more protests. There are protests happening all over the country about a variety of things. Could be Confederate monuments. It could be white supremacy. It could be whatever. Tonight, obviously, it is the Shockley verdict. It's been going on for, is it 6 days now? 6 days now? And this is the latest incarnation of this. White people attempting to interrupt the Billy Joel concert, which, honest, white people, you can't interrupt the Billy Joel concert because white people are going to it. I'm saying this with my tongue firmly ensconced in my cheek. Here's a little bit more from the report on Channel 4 tonight.
That tonight was about showcasing that the Black Lives Matter movement for racial justice isn't just comprised of black people. Okay. There were hundreds of white people on hand here at Keener Plaza earlier today before making their way to Busch Stadium, where they intended to shut down tonight's Billy Joel concert. There were a few tense moments during that 2-hour demonstration. I watched as protesters pushed down the barricades being used outside Busch, but officers quickly reestablished those blocks. A few minutes after the concert went on as planned, demonstrators shut down traffic at Broadway and Market, where they remained for close to half an hour before heading home. I talked to one of the organizers of tonight's
Well, they're white people, and it's getting kind of late, right? You got to get home, and you got to get up tomorrow morning, and you're going to have to get Starbucks and take the kids to wherever. So you're not going to protest late into the evening.
Black Lives Matter White Ally event.
I fall asleep on my couch. I mean, during a protest, I'd be looking at my watch going, guys, the concert's already started. It's time to go.
Message for our viewers.
If you're a white person at home, sitting down, watching the show instead of being here, you have to ask yourself, are you part of that white silence?
Okay, there's a white guy who's down there because he has white guilt, making white people feel guilty.
And no arrests were made during tonight's demonstration to, quote, end white silence. Organizers say despite not shutting down the Billy Joel concert happening right now at Busch Stadium, they do still feel like their voices were heard and their message delivered.
Okay, so now listen, I'm saying this in a reverent fashion. I've got a lot of things I'm going to get to on the show. Okay? Tonight, it was an attempt to disrupt a Billy Joel concert. But there are a lot of things that have not happened since Ferguson. There are a few things that have happened since Ferguson. All of the things that have happened, many of them are very negative. I'm going to share with you some of the negative. And I'm going to share with you how some people who are behind the BLM movement are avoiding the reality of the situation. Half of the protests, okay, half of the protesters are ignoring a giant elephant in the room while focusing on police need to do better, the city needs to do better, white people need to do better, all of this stuff. But there's one thing that's gotten far, far worse. Your calls are welcome on this, 314-436-7900, 1-800-925-1120. I'd love to hear from you, regardless of your color about this. We have many things to, nuanced approaches to this evening. We'll focus on, did you see protesters tonight? And how was the concert? And then I've got some other things I'm going to share with you. More audio as well. Pat and Sue, you'll be up first, okay? The number 314-436-7900, 1-800-925-1120. I'm Rob Carson, filling in on News Radio 1120, KMOX.
The voice of the St. Louis Blues, KMOX.
Kind of rhythmic like Billy Joel, the Black Lives protesters this evening down near the Billy Joel concert. Tonight it was the White Allies March, so it was guilty white people showing up to make other white people who aren't down there feel really bad about everything. So the new chant is white silence is violence and no justice, no profits, which is so just, I mean, that's got to be so great for downtown St. Louis businesses. I mean, no justice, no profits, is it now? So you got the people downtown who's struggling to make a living, and suddenly they're the targets of all of this, and suddenly their windows are being broken again, and suddenly now no justice, no profits. Are like, they've got to be going, dude, I haven't done anything. I'm just trying to make a living here. No justice, no profits. It's such a misguided movement, and we're going to get to so much more on this. Rob Carson filling in tonight, by the way. Glad to have you along with me. We're talking about the protests continuing. I had mentioned that the concert went on, even though the BLM White Allies March wasn't able to shut down the concert, although they tried, and you can't. You can't shut down a Billy Joel concert when white people are going. It's just not going to. It'd be like trying to shut down a Nickelback concert. Not going to happen. That's just not going to happen. Anyway, we've got your calls going here. 314-436-7900, 1-800-925-1120. Pat has been nice enough to hold. Pat, welcome to News Radio 1120 KMOX. Your thoughts on this evening, my friend?
Yeah, hi. Listen, I got a couple things to talk to you about. As far as the protesters, where in the world does it say in the Constitution that they can protest, but they have to shut down other people's civil liberties? They want to protest.
Yeah.
Let them have a arena or someplace they can all meet there and protest all they want.
Yeah.
And another thing is we're paying the family, Anthony Smith, $900,000 for what? The officer was exonerated, for crying out loud. What? Judge Thomas, I don't even know the man.
Yeah.
But can you imagine what he went through? Either way he was going. But this gentleman made one hell of a decision, and I'm very disappointed in our prosecuting attorney's statement, because they've convicted their share of innocent people, too.
Well, I remember when I heard the headline that there was a settlement with Mike Brown's family, and with Ferguson. And I said, well, how much did Mike Brown's family have to pay Ferguson?
I was raised out in North St. Louis County in that. And who the hell was Michael Brown anyway? He was a thug.
Yeah.
And all these shootings and that, they all run. If they wouldn't run, it wouldn't happen.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate the phone call. There's going to be a settlement. There would have been a civil suit. Civil suits are harder to prove and whatnot, or I should say easier to prove. And so the city just settled to avoid all of the legal costs, blah, 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 blah. That's what that was all about. I actually, I've had a chance to read the decision, and originally I was, I was kind of like, well, there's DNA on the gun and all this, and had a chance to really, really read it, and now I realize that the judge's ruling was right. We'll get into that very shortly. I want to grab Steve here real quick. He's been nice enough to hold. Steve, welcome to News Radio 1120 KMOX. Your thoughts, my friend?
Hey, Rob. My silence is not violence. I am not being silent, but I will not protest when they are wrong.
Yeah.
The guy was a heroin dealer. He, rammed a cop car. He tried running from the cop, which they all do. And he wound up on the short end of the stick. He died.
A couple of other things. I was reading the decision, and just the last week or so, there were witnesses there who videotaped it, who said that the officers got out of their SUV with guns still in holster. They said, "Let me see your hands. Let me see your hands." There were no hands. The guy was searching for something. The way the trajectory of the bullet hit his body, he was turning to get something. DNA evidence on a gun. I could hold a gun all day in my hand. I could hold a gun all day in my hand, turn it over to police. There'd be no DNA evidence on it, okay? There are a lot of things about this, after reading the decision, that make it fairly clear, like with Mike Brown, which, by the way, started a movement based on, a lie. That's what this is about as well, but it's continuing a narrative, and now it's moved into just plain old white guilt. Now we had people down there now it's white silences violence. So white allies now have entered the fray as well. And honestly, at this point, I don't know. I don't even know what to say. Go ahead.
Nationally, St. Louis is getting a black eye, and our mayor is showing real signs of weakness right now. She's not doing any good either.
Well, I don't know how much more the city can take of this stuff, to be quite honest. It is, you've got police, and one of the questions I was thinking the last couple of days, because I knew I was going to be on, who the hell would want to be a cop in St. Louis right now? Who the hell would want to be a cop, period, right now?
Not me.
I wouldn't want to be a cop. Are you kidding me? And
No,
did you hear the other night when the police they were basically saying we took back the streets? I was so happy for them.
And the mayor chastised them for it.
Oh, they shut the damn thing. They said, screw that, we're done. And thank goodness for the police, and thank goodness for Governor Eric Greitens saying, we're not going to do this. We're not going to do this again.
And we shouldn't have to put up with it. As citizens, we don't have to put up with it, and the cops don't have to put up with people throwing stuff at them.
Amen. Thanks for the call. Real quick, Pamela. Pamela, you were at the show, Billy Joel, tonight. How was it? Come on.
The Billy Joel concert was awesome, but I have to tell you,
yeah,
I am upset that Mayor Cruzen has not done nothing about the violence.
Yeah.
I feel that this city is just letting things go on and on. And I feel like she is scared to say anything.
Yeah. All right. Hey, Pamela, thanks for the phone call. Your thoughts on this, guys. 314-436-7900, 1-800-925-1120. I've got much more to get to. Charlie Brennan had a great guest on today. Jamela Roberts, a co-founder, Organization for Black Struggle. I'm going to share a little bit of that interview this morning, my thoughts on that. The number of shootings, what is the end game for these protesters, and, of course, your thoughts. I'm Rob Carson. You are listening to News Radio 1120 KMOX. Stick around, guys.
When I was a kid, I didn't really know much about the Cardinals. I really started loving the Cardinals back in the 1980s when we had Ozzie Smith and Willie McGee. Willie McGee was probably my favorite player during that time.
McGee, a line drive into the left field corner.
And my parents actually had season tickets for several years. So they couldn't go to every game, so I was the beneficiary sometimes to be able to go to games. And that's when my love of the Cardinals started. This is Lisa Ferry, and when it comes to Cardinal baseball, I always hear it on KMOX.
News Radio 1120 KMOX, St. Louis's news, traffic, and weather.
Rob Carson filling in on News Radio 1120 KMOX, talking about the Billy Joel concert and the white people downtown protesting. Hundreds of mostly white protesters feeling guilty for being white. White silences violence, no justice, no profits, punishing St. Louis business for the sins of whatever. It makes no sense. Honestly, it makes no sense to go after the Galleria. It makes no sense to go after St. Louis businesses. All it does is make the St. Louis area, downtown, a less habitable, less inviting area. It hurts the businesses who are already down there. I can't even imagine how agonizing it is to have a business when you have these idiots saying no justice, no profits. Hey, dummies, the business owners didn't do anything. All right, the business owners didn't do anything. They're trying to make it a better place. But as with most of these idiotic protests, all they do is reap destruction. Okay, we've seen these protests, obviously, not only in St. Louis, Ferguson, now in downtown St. Louis. What about the unfounded racial protests at the University of Missouri? And I'm close to Mizzou. Lived in Columbia for about 5 years. Loved it there. I know Mr. Mark Reardon went to school there, worked with him right out of college at a radio station there. We called him the news guy. And now their enrollment is way down because of a faux protest started by a spoiled rich kid from Omaha whose dad was a railroad executive, and he made up a story about a Dixie flag downtown Columbia. There was no evidence of it. There was no witnesses of it. There were no description of the truck that was there. There was no description. There was no license plate number. There was a poop swastika that was unfounded. I'm so darn tired of it, guys. I'm really tired of it. I read the judge's decision. And honestly, if you look at it, here we go again. And this happened before Mike Brown. But because of Mike Brown, this case went forward. That's what it was. It was the Ferguson effect. And as you look at the decision, and I looked at it today, the last about a week or so. Looked at the decision, and I was going, wow, there was DNA from the cop on the gun. And then I read about a DNA analyst looked at DNA results from the gun, and it was consistent with Jason Stockley. Okay, all right. Also said that the absence of a person's DNA does not mean that the person did not touch the gun. So the gun was touched by Mr. Smith. Your thoughts are welcome, guys. I would love to hear them. And then I've got a few things I want to get to. I want to get to Charlie Brennan's show this morning. It was great. And here are some of the things that he had a guest on this morning, and I want to share that with you. John has been nice enough to hold. John, welcome to News Radio 1120. KMOX, go right ahead. Sir, your thoughts. Go ahead.
Hi. I disagree a little bit with what you said, that it said the gun belonged to Mr. Smith. It might have, but because, the DNA could either be on it or not with him. Same way with Jason Stockley. It could either be on it or not, because he said he unloaded the gun. What concerns me more is the judge overlooked the DNA that was under the screw that is used to disassemble and assemble the gun, according to the prosecutor and to one of the DNA experts who pulled the screws out and looked at it and found the DNA under a screw. Do you know how a DNA would get under a screw that is used to disassemble a gun? For one thing, that's just my question. He didn't say that. The judge.
We feel like we're at this crossroad.
You there?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just had something in my ear. Go ahead.
That's my one question. The judge didn't mention the screw and the DNA under the screw, that you'd probably have to take the screw out to get your DNA in there and put the screw back in. That's the first thing. The other thing is, and I want you to remember that first part. The second part is about who thugs are. I think a guy dealing heroin, if they actually deal it, yes, is a thug. I think, though, that there's they say 69% now of the people who buy marijuana, cocaine, methamphetamines, and including heroin, all those illegal drugs, 69%, according to the FBI, are white people that buy them and use them. So are the white girls and boys in the suburbs, are they thugs for buying heroin? Are they thugs for using heroin? Are the men and women, the mothers and fathers who buy all these illegal drugs, are they thugs for buying heroin and thugs for using heroin?
I'll say sure. John, to your first point, as far as DNA evidence is concerned, when the car was stopped, the officer went back to his SUV and got a coagulant. It was something to stop bleeding. Now, that could have meant that he had injured his hand. And I will tell you that blood can get under anything. And I might also add that Mr. Smith's DNA was not on the gun. That doesn't mean he didn't handle the gun. Okay, so there's that going on. As far as people who use heroin and go into the inner city and buy heroin, I'll call them thugs. I don't care what color your skin is. Doesn't matter to me at all. John, let me ask you this. With regard to the verdict and the protest and shutting down the city and saying things like no justice, no profits, where are you with regard to that as far as a reaction if you disagree with the judge's decision?
I'm against. No, I don't know if I disagree with the decision. I want a better explanation about the screw. You got a good explanation if that blood can get down in there. I don't know if it can or can't. There was no explanation in the writing. That's all. But besides that, as far as getting under the screw, but maybe you just cleared it up. As far as protesting, I've protested, but I'm against breaking anything or I'm not against getting in the way of things. One thing I am against is why no white people I know. I've talked to about 72 white people in the last 5 years and took a survey, and only 2 people that they can remember, 2 have ever bought anything from a black-owned business in North St. Louis. So white people are refusing to support black-owned businesses in North St. Louis.
Listen, John, I mean, can you blame them if you look at the crime rate in these areas?
Right, it's poverty.
Really?
And the Pew Research Center says that 90% of the poverty was caused by systematic white racism, and 10% is caused by black people's own choices and behavior.
Come, John, I'll get into the crime rate with regard to African Americans, with regard to murder, not only of black people, but of white people. There are a lot of bad neighborhoods, and don't be blaming white people because of high crime areas that are largely African American, because they exist everywhere. I grew up outside of Omaha, Nebraska. You didn't go to North O. My Uncle Don lived in North O, and we'd go to his house in North O, largely back area, white family. We did not go out after dark. They kept
white people caused the problem. Why don't they go back?
The white people didn't cause the problem, John. No, they didn't. No. There was a disintegration of the black family, and don't blame it on that. See, this is the problem, and I'm going to get into this, John. And then listen, I don't want to be argumentative. White people didn't cause the problem. Don't blame it all on white people. All right? You saw the disintegration of the African American family. You've seen the birth rate without fathers in the home. You've seen the crime rate. You can't blame this on white people. You can't feel guilty because you're a white person about this. This is the part of the equation that we're not addressing. And listen, I'm willing to address both sides. And we're going to get into what Charlie Brennan talked about with Jamala Rogers this morning. We need to work together. I'll give you that. But the one thing that's being completely avoided, the one thing that has not gotten better since Ferguson, is the situation in African American inner cities. And it's gotten worse. But, John, I appreciate your phone call. I think, let me look at my clock here. Do we have to take a break here? Yes, we have to take a break. Karen and John, hold on, okay? Your calls are welcome, 314-436-7900, 1-800-925-1120. My name is Rob Carson. You are listening to News Radio 1120, KMOX.
Very first thing in the morning, I like to know what's going on when I start my day.
Then you need Total Information AM in your morning.
I like to know what went on overnight when I was sleeping.
News. The national and local news in the morning.
Weather. I definitely have to know the forecast.
Traffic. Just to make sure there's no accidents.
Sports.
We're big sports fans.
Get all the information you need in your morning.
U.S. news, world news.
Local news.
Weather.
Traffic.
All the sports.
With Total Information AM.
I have it on during breakfast.
Only on KMOX. St. Louis's news, traffic, and weather.
Hey, it's Chris Kerber here, the voice of the St. Louis Blues. And this Saturday, the Blues take on the Dallas Stars at 7 p.m. It's preseason hockey action. Hear the game on KMOX.com and Sports Radio 98.1 HD3.
Rob Carson filling in on News Radio 1120 KMOX. Welcome to the show. It's nice to fill in, and it's obviously a great honor to be on this wonderful radio station. Steve Moore, thank you. You rock. So more protests downtown. This time it's guilty white people. White Allies March. White silence is violence. So if you're silence, like I sit on the TV at night and my wife chooses to watch HGTV. And I just kind of let it happen. Lately she's been on a Sex in the City binge. And so I'm like, I don't even say anything because it's so bad. Like the other night she watched a Sex in the City movie, the second one, and it was so bad. And I just was like, I'm not going to say anything because she'll just get mad at me. So I guess my silence is violence. And then no justice, no profit. So it's a bunch of people who think it's better for St. Louis to become a worse place with no jobs as some sort of justification for police violence against black people. Okay, yeah, it makes sense, right? No, not really. I've had a chance to go over, and I'll post it on my Facebook page at Rob Carson Show. Couple of witnesses after the crash. As the police officers approached Anthony Smith's car, Monte Jota and Antonio French both said that the police officers approached the car after this chase, after You're approached by police, you back into the SUV, you back into another car, you swipe a police officer, the police officer says they see a gun, you lead police officers on a 3-minute chase, 87 miles an hour, careening through the city, endangering people, you finally crash, then get hit by the SUV. The police get out with their guns still in holster, which is pretty, exercising a little bit of self-control, and both of these two witnesses on the scene, Monte and Antonio, said, the police said, open the effing door, show me your hands. Neither of those things happened. Bang, bang. I don't know. To me, and listen, I didn't, 6-7 days ago, I didn't know which way to feel. And then when I went, DNA on the gun. That's the cop. That bastard's getting off. And then I read the details on the case. I'm like, no, here we go again. Here we go, Ferguson one more time. And some people who choose not to read the court decision and immediately make up their minds want to destroy the city one more time. Bravo. Let's just make it even more hard to be a business owner in St. Louis. It's stupid. It's like throwing a tantrum. My brother, when he was a kid, used to throw a tantrum in his room, wreck his room, break everything. I was like, wow, that's really stupid because you got to live in that room. And yet we have people in the city who are doing the same darn thing. Let's go to Karen online. Karen, hello and welcome to News Radio 1120 KMOX. Your thoughts, my dear?
Yeah, I went down to the Billy Joel concert tonight. My husband and I with some friends.
Love it.
And we got there, 5:45, somewhere around there. We were parked down where Patios and Kilroy's is. And first of all, we never saw a protester the whole night, so, just great job by the police. But second of all, my husband made the point, this, in a way, kind of backfired for them. If they're trying to make an economic impact, what it did is make everybody come downtown early, and instead of eating dinner at home, all the bars and restaurants were packed.
Yeah, that's true.
So we're all down here money that I probably would have made a quick dinner at home, and I didn't do. So, I don't know. At least in this case, I think it flip-flopped for him.
I think you're 100% right, Karen. Thank you very much for the phone call. Great point. Let's go to John on the line. Hello, John. Welcome to News Radio 1120 KMOX. Your thoughts, my friend?
Yeah, I got two things to say. The first thing, we went to the Billy Joel concert. It was great.
Yeah.
Enjoyed it. Had a blast. I didn't see any protesters beforehand, but there was a whole bunch of helicopters flying around. We started watching on our phone live and saw, there's a few protesters. And my second thing is, facts don't care about your feelings. Some people's feelings got upset. This guy got shot. But all in all, he did it to himself. The evidence is not for him. He's endangering a whole bunch of people's lives. It's just not smart. This is happening all over the country. We see this, not just St. Louis. And these guys, these thugs, most of the time, they're going out and they're saying, they didn't do anything wrong, blah, blah, blah. The evidence comes out. It's completely against them. People are still up in arms and they're, destroy everything. And you just said earlier, all it's doing is making everything worse. It's a false narrative, John. It's a false narrative. It's not 1968 all over again. I'm so damn tired of this. I'm a 50-year-old man. I never have had a racist thought in my life. I grew up in the 1970s. I never owned any slaves.
I'm trying to remember if we did own any slaves. I grew up in Iowa. I don't think so. It was 1978, 77. I don't think we had any slaves. That said, honestly, this movement across the country is a way to distract of the real social ills of the inner city. And unless we address that, things are never going to get better. John, thanks for the phone call. Dave, real quick. Dave, welcome to News Radio 1120 KMOX. Rob Carson filling in. Your thoughts, sir?
Well, my feeling is if I were an officer in St. Louis, I'd be scared. And I think it's bullshit. Because, excuse my language.
Bleep. Go ahead and continue. All right, Dave is off. Dave, you got to watch the language, man. I understand. You got to watch it. Back to the thought. It doesn't do any good to protest businesses that had nothing to do with it, okay? No justice, no profits makes no sense. You've got people who are going to the Galleria. Here we go again. All it's going to make is the place a worse place to live. And then when you combine that with people who are wanting to forward a narrative about a city that is false. It's just making things worse. And when you don't address the real issues of the inner city, it compounds it even worse. I want to get into this, and we've been kind of irreverent about it to some degree. I've got some serious points, and I know I've been talking about Charlie Brennan's show this morning. I'm going to share some audio from that, and I'm going to share what we need to address if we're going to fix this, because it has to be fixed. There are some things we're not looking at that we need to, and I, as a even though I'm a white person, I want to fix this. I want to make the world a better place. I want to heal the racial divide. Your thoughts are welcome. 314-436-7900, 1-800-925-1120. I'm Rob Carson, filling in on News Radio 1120 KMOX. Stick around. Rob Carson, filling in on News Radio 1120 KMOX. Hello. It's an honor and a privilege to be here. By the way, I just posted the judge's decision with regard to Jason Stockley and Anthony Smith on my Facebook page. It is Rob Carson Show. Rob Carson Show. I am a talk radio show host, video and audio podcaster, and nationally syndicated comedy writer. If you have not heard of me before, that's cool. I understand. I have written political satire for none other than Rush Limbaugh for quite a while, actually. I started in the 90s. Writing for Rush. Good friend of Mr. Mark Reardon, used to work with Marky in Columbia. Yeah, I call him Marky. Worked within Columbia. If you want to check out my podcast, I do a daily podcast. It is on iTunes, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Audio Boom, Player FM, YouTube. I've learned all these things, even though I'm like middle-aged. And just look up Rob Carson Show. I do a daily podcast, about 30 to 45 minutes, and it's about the events of the day. White silence is violence, apparently. Now, white people need to make you feel guilty because you're white and you weren't at the protests. Thought that was interesting. If the protester earlier, there was a white allies march downtown. People trying to prevent white people from Billy Joel concert. That is just, that's fruitless. You can't keep white people from seeing Billy Joel. Anyway, there were, if you heard at the news at the top of the hour, there were some people there saying that if you are a white person and you were not on the street with them protesting this decision by the judge, which I posted on my Facebook page at Rob Carson Show, you are complicit, you are violent. There's a lot of CRAP going on around the country, on campus, in cities. I had a chance to read the judge's decision with regard to Mr. Smith. Imagine this. You're in a car. You just maybe dealt some heroin. Heroin's in the car. Police officer approaches you. You decide to back into the police officer's SUV, then back into a car next to it, then sideswipe the police officer. The police officer sees a gun. Your car speeds away. Police officer fires some shots. You lead the police officer on an 87-mile-an-hour police chase. You smash into another car. The police SUV arrives, smashes into you. You are in the car. The police officer says, basically, open the effing door, get your hands up. You don't do those things, even though the police officer, after being led on this high-speed chase, still has his gun holstered. You choose not to put your hands on the steering wheel. You choose not to open the door. Police officer shoots you. Witnesses, Monte and Antonio. Monte Jota, Antonio French. They're on the scene. They said the same thing. Yeah, man. Said open the effing car door. Show me your hands. Didn't do either one of those. 15 seconds later, and this is how things happen, because it doesn't take much time to draw a gun. Bang, bang, bang. All right? I've read this decision. Again, I posted it on my Facebook page. This is another case. This is another Mike Brown incident. But there's a faux movement behind it, and now it's destroying a city once again. And now you've got guilty white people downtown wanting to destroy businesses and make St. Louis an even less hospitable environment to live in and to do business in. So there you go. Your temper tantrum has caused the city to become a worse place, and the people who are already living there, who are already suffering, now have fewer opportunities for job opportunities, Business owners are hurt because for some odd, inane, stupid reason, you've decided to go after small business. Unreal. Dave's on the line. Dave's been nice enough to hold. Dave, hello and welcome to News Radio 1120 KMOX. Your thoughts?
Hi, I'm sorry I said a bad word.
I know you did. Yeah, it's all right. Come back.
Okay. What I meant to say was
yeah.
that, first of all, Ferguson, Mizzou, all this stuff is so stupid. And I agree with everything you said earlier. What people don't get, and the protesters don't get, is that they are defeating themselves because they're causing more racial tension by acting the way they do. And now people are getting really mad at them, black or white, I don't care what they are. But they're not accomplishing one thing, and they never have. At Mizzou, they destroyed the program.
Yeah.
And I went to Oklahoma State, but still, I love Mizzou. And you know what? I'm so distressed by what's going on there. And what's going on in St. Louis is so stupid.
Yeah.
I won't say that word. But
it's
so
stupid. Yeah. Here's Dave. Here's what I had alluded to earlier. Yes, racism exists. Okay. The problem is that as time has marched on since Ferguson, the number of high school dropouts in African American communities has not decreased. The number of teen pregnancies has not decreased. The number of fatherless families has not decreased. The number of babies aborted before they were born in the African American community has not decreased. The number of people in school who go after and rip on African American kids by their peers because they're successful in school has not decreased. The number of crimes committed by African Americans, not only against African Americans, but other people, has increased. These are all of the things that nobody's talking about, Dave. Nobody's talking about it, Dave.
No, you're exactly right. And what really makes me mad is you had a caller earlier, and he said it's the white kids out in the county or whatever that are affluent or that they're not poor or whatever that are feeding this problem. That's not true.
It's
bullcrap. I have 4 kids that went to Webster. Yeah. And you know what? I saw kids die from heroin. I've seen it all. And their friends died. And you know what? You kill the problem. And the problem is a guy like this that's out there dealing drugs and pulls off the stuff that he did. I used a better word. And the fact that he actually was aggressive towards our police department. If I was a cop in St. Louis, I'd quit.
Oh, yeah,
I'd
man.
be too scared to be a cop.
Yeah. Hey, listen, Dave, I got to run. I wouldn't be a cop. There's no way. I was thinking about this earlier. I was like, you could pay me 6 figures. I would not be a police officer anywhere, particularly in St. Louis. And I want to say to the police, I support you. All right. I do. I can't even imagine going through what you got to go through. And there's a lot of crap that's been happening. For instance, hold on, I got a story here. I just got a ton of stuff to talk about here. Let's see. Yeah, the St. Louis Police Union headquarters has been vandalized. Happened yesterday. They broke windows, spray-painted graffiti at the union's headquarters. So that happened. The police basically responded and covered the broken windows with plywood, saying, "We're open, we won't be defeated." You had the police officers the other night saying we take back the streets, but that was offensive to the mayor. Hey, man, I'm glad the police have taken back the streets. Enough with this BS. You can have your peaceful protest. You start breaking windows. You know, we start breaking heads. Sorry, just the way it is, man. Tell you what, I'm gonna have to. Scott, hold on, okay? Your thoughts on this, and in the next segment, I'm gonna get to Charlie Brennan's show. And Jamala Rogers, the co-founder of the Organization for Black Struggle, this morning. And what she said, and I thought it was very cool that she was on the show. Don't get me wrong. I really do. But there are some things that are not being included in the conversation. And unless we address them, things will never get better. Your thoughts are welcome. 314-436-7900, 1-800-925-1120. I'm Rob Carson on News Radio 1120, KMOX. Thank God! By the grace of God, it is finally Friday. The number here, 314-436-7900, 1-800-925-1120. Talking about what happened downtown tonight, what's happened the last 6 days. With regard to the Anthony Smith, Jason Stockley verdict, you had the White Allies March downtown, white people feeling guilty, came in from the suburbs. I think they must have had a coupon for mocha cappuccinos to get them down there. Not sure. Anyway, the new chant is white silence is violence. So if you're a white person and you don't agree with them that Anthony Smith was a thug and the police were justified, then you are committing an act of violence. That's the deal right now. If you disagree with some people on the left, you are committing an act of violence. No justice, no profits. That's also stupid. This, of course, I think has to deal with white people coming from the suburbs, willing to see businesses downtown destroyed by their protests. But they can retreat and they can go back to Chesterfield and they can feel good about themselves. And that's so neat. I'm just so tired of this crap, to be quite honest. We've got Scott on the line. Scott is, welcome to News Radio 1120 KMOX. Your thoughts, my friend?
Hey, Rob, I got 2 quick points. One's kind of tongue-in-cheek. I think if you want to protest, that's fine, but there has to be a caveat. You have to be, A, a registered voter, and B, be able to name your alderman, because I guarantee you most of these people can't do either or. So you get that out there. So, and then we're protesting the wrong thing. If you really want to protest, you need to protest the St. Louis City school system. It's horrible. And also accreditation. That's where the problem, you fix that, that's where you start fixing the problem. You clean house with everybody on the top levels of the St. Louis school system because they're not there because they want to do a good job. They're there because it's a good job.
Well, Mick, here's the deal. This is happening, and this is a narrative that's been around. Or I should say, Scott, sorry about that. Scott, this is a narrative that's going around in every city in the country, in Chicago, in Gary, Indiana, in any city, Columbia Dam, Missouri, schools where there are large populations of African-American kids are pretty well funded, but failing. You look at the dollar amount spent on the students and the failure. This just, it goes on and on and on. You look at municipalities where the lion's share of the constituents are African-American. They are run by Democrats, and they are run into the ground by Democrats. East St. Louis, prime example.
Right.
You could say fix the schools, but geez, Scott, come on, man. That ain't it, dude. That ain't just it. That's part of the problem. How about fix the family? What? Go ahead.
Well, then the other thing, too, I mean, I understand you want to protest, but let's start with what have you done to improve your community at your work? Well, if you see a drug dealer, do you call the cops or do you just say, hey, it's my buddy down the street making a living? I mean, that's part of it, too. You got to start taking ownership of your communities and clean them up.
Well, I heard this morning, again, I was talking about Charlie Brennan, and there were 2 kids killed locally just because they witnessed a murder. This is a big problem, and you can't just blame it on Whitey in the suburbs. You can't blame it on the police. Got to run, Scott. Thanks for the call. Mick is now on the line. Hello, Mick, and welcome to News Radio 1120 KMOX.
How are you, sir? Thanks for taking the call.
You bet, buddy. Go ahead.
I just cannot believe that these people are continuing to try to make a martyr out of a violent criminal. First of all, that is problem number one. Reardon had Jamila on the radio the other day. She blamed everybody and took no responsibility for any of the problems in the city.
Yeah.
The city has been under Democrat rule for, 50 years now?
Oh, yeah.
Every year they promise, we're going to make it better. We're going to make it better. We're going to make it better. They don't make it better.
No.
They continue with the same failed policies. They continue with the same rhetoric. And I just can't believe that people continue to fall for this crap.
I know, man. And it's happening in municipalities around the country, from Washington, D.C. to Kansas City. to name the city. You name the worst neighborhoods in the country in any given city. They are largely run by Democrats, and they are largely African American populated. And it's sad. It's sad. And I would like to address how we fix this beyond blaming somebody, blaming the police for it. Now, Scott is on the line, and he says that crime is not increasing, it's decreasing. Scott, you're right on one count, but you're wrong on the other. Go right ahead and let me hear what you had to say, buddy. Welcome to News Radio 1120 KMOX.
Yeah, well, according to the Pew research, the crime rate is down and the imprisonment rate is also down.
Yeah, nationally, you are absolutely right. In St. Louis, you are incorrect, though.
Well, yeah, St. Louis. Well, who says that?
Well, I was looking at a report today. St. Louis police have fatally shot 8 armed people this year, the highest in a decade. You are looking at Lieutenant Colonel Rochelle Jones. She says that the rise of police shootings she attributed the rise of police shootings to the rise in violent crime in St. Louis. The noted aggravated assaults in the city are up 5.6% this year compared to last year. Aggravated assaults with guns are up 16% in the city of St. Louis. 2016, there were 188 homicides in St. Louis, the same amount as 2015. Together with the highest homicide tallies in decades, the city has been running slightly ahead of the pace this year. By the way, 144 homicides this year in St. Louis, and 100% of the suspected, the people who are suspects in the crimes, African American. But go ahead.
Yeah, well, so the overall crime rate in St. Louis is up?
Yes. But nationally, now listen, Scott, nationally it's down. In St. Louis, it is up. And I would attribute that to the Ferguson effect. Police afraid to do their jobs. Go ahead.
Well, it's been falling all over the country for, I think, 20 years now.
And that's great. But what do we do about where we live?
Also, I think teen pregnancies are down, too.
Well, I don't know what it is in St. Louis. But, yes, there are some positives happening all over the country. Unfortunately,
right.
The violent crime thing, it's going up here. Scott, thanks for the phone call. Do really appreciate your thoughts. Your thoughts are welcome, 314-436-7900, 1-800-925-1120. A little bit more on this, and then we might move to some other things, okay? Maybe. Well, I want to talk about Jimmy Kimmel. All right, and how late-night television isn't funny anymore. We're going to share that and other things. And again, your thoughts, guys. Greatly appreciate you listening. My name is Rob Carson. You are listening to News Radio 1120 KMOX. Rob Carson filling in on News Radio 1120 KMOX. Good evening. Cardinals win today. Very nice. 80 wins. Billy Joel concert. Very successful. Had some great reviews for that. There was a little bit of a protest down there. It was white people, white allies march against the Jason Stockley verdict. There were hundreds of people. White silence is violence, and no justice, no profits. They're attempting to, for some odd, inane, stupid reason, punish small businesses because a police officer shot a heroin dealer after a high-speed chase. Okay, I know it doesn't make any sense. Anyway, your thoughts on all of these things, 314-436-7900, 1-800-925-1120. Again, don't get in the way of white people going to Billy Joel. It's just not going to happen. I want to mention real quick this piece in the St. Louis Post. Criminologist David Klinger is talking about, he's an expert on police shootings at University of Missouri St. Louis, said that the rising number of police shootings isn't surprising given the crime rate, which is rising. The more violent a community becomes, the more chances police have of encountering armed criminals. As crime rates go up and down, so do police shootings. Okay, so this is cogent for today, even though this shooting happened years ago. Okay. I've been talking about Charlie Brennan's show. And by the way, Charlie Brennan, congratulations on 29 years. 29 years at this radio station. I love your show, man. Really, really do. You're a pro. You are a pro. He had Jamela Rogers, co-founder of the Organization for Black Struggle, the author of Ferguson is America, Roots of Rebellion. I'm sure she's a conservative. I mean, she's got to be way right of center on this. She was on this morning talking about a few things, including the police chase. Now, the police chase in this case was spurred by Anthony Smith apparently doing a drug deal. Police arrived. Anthony Smith hits a police vehicle, the SUV, then hits another car, then brushes the police officer, Jason Stockley, as he's driving away. He and his partner saw a gun in the seat. That's what they say. And they say, gun, and then Jason Stockley fired, and Anthony Smith drove off, led him on a 3-minute chase, 87 miles an hour, blah, 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 blah. So they addressed the issue of police chases. Again, I think it's great that Jamela Rogers appeared on the show. I really do. I really do. But there are a few things that she needs to address that she's not willing to address, and that are the ills of the African-American community in cities like St. Louis, Ferguson, yada, yada, yada.
For whatever reason, chases happen more on the north side than in other communities. And so we have to...
Yeah, because a lot more crime happens there. Yeah.
Take note of that, but we also have to make sure that that person was armed, that person was dangerous, and for the most part, that's not the case.
Now... Well, then that's all fine and dandy, but they said they saw a gun there after a heroin deal.
I don't want to second-guess the police, but is it possible for a police officer to say, I thought I saw a weapon in the car. That's why I chased the vehicle.
Well, that's going to be hard to do for you to see a weapon in a car unless somebody has the gun outside the window.
Well, in the case of these two police officers, they were standing right outside of the vehicle looking in and could see the driver, the passenger, and the interior of the car.
But now that was the case with Anthony Lamar Smith, correct?
That's debatable.
No. The officers said they saw it. They were right there.
That's part of the debate.
I think Stockley did testify that he saw a firearm in the vehicle.
Right, but nobody else saw that same firearm. So that's what I'm saying is debatable.
Because nobody else was right there near the vehicle at the time the police chase started, and the car driven by Anthony Smith hit the police SUV.
So if that's going to be used by every cop that stops a car or chases a car, then that again comes to the credibility of the police department.
Okay. If you think that the only way to determine if there's a gun in the car is if the guy is waving it out the window, we're going to have some real serious problems. We are going to have some serious problems. Now, Charlie brought up an interesting statistic, by the way, about the number of murders so far committed in St. Louis this year.
We were talking earlier about why African Americans might be encountered more by police than their white, Asian, or Latino counterparts. There is a statistic that the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department issued last week. They haven't updated for this week yet. And that is that of all the homicides in 2017, and there have been 144 in the city of St. Louis, every single suspect is African American. And so wouldn't it follow that police would have more African American suspects, more encounters with African Americans for violent crime than they would for other racial groups?
Okay, that was a great point. It's a great point. It's 100% logical. A little bit more from Mr. Brennan.
But in this country, almost twice as many whites are shot and killed by cops than African Americans.
And that's true, but I think the operative thing that you mentioned is like we are a certain percent of the population. So if you look at the disproportionate representation of those fatalities, then you have to start to wonder what's going on.
Well, when you look at the disproportionate number of fatalities, you have to look at the disproportionate number of African Americans who are committing crimes in the country. And it is a gigantic number. I was looking at this piece from New Century Foundation, 2013. Of approximately 660,000 crimes of interracial violence that involved blacks and whites. Blacks were the perpetrators in 85% of the time. This meant a black person was 27 times more likely to attack a white person than vice versa. 2014, New York City, a black person was 31 times more likely than a white to be arrested for murder. A Hispanic was 12.5 times more likely. Okay. In an all-white Chicago, murder would decline 90%, rape by 81%, robbery by 90%. These are just statistics. I'm reading them. I'm just reading them. And I'm not meaning to blame Black America. I'm just saying the statistics are there. If the crime is that high, when you go into an area like this, the police are generally going to encounter more people who are up to nefarious acts, like Mr. Smith.
Could it be that police officers are patrolling, policing neighborhoods that are high crime more often, and African Americans, at least in the city of St. Louis, commit more violent crimes than their white counterparts?
I don't know if that's true. I don't think there's no evidence to say that.
Nothing against Jamala Rogers, but Jamala, honestly, wow. After the statistics I've just read, and if you look at the statistics in St. Louis and wherever, if you're avoiding this, then it's never going to get better. It's never going to get better.
Basically, what's being said, if there's not going to be any justice in this area, there's certainly not going to be any peace in St. Louis. And so when I hear about a business owner like the pie pizza owner saying, I need to step up, that's exactly what we need people to do, because we're not going to have a safe.
Why should people step up when every effort you make to make the city better is greeted by idiots who say things like no justice, no profits? Why in the heck would people living outside of St. Louis in the suburbs come in and help when all you're going to do is get blamed? All you're going to do is get blamed.
And livable community, unless all of us have a stake in this. And why
would you have a stake in it when I can live in Chesterfield and I'm perfectly fine? I'm not meaning to sound arrogant or anything, but there are a lot of African American members of the community who live outside of St. Louis. They have a stake in it. Why do they have a stake in it? They escaped it.
See that kind of thing happen. I think it's encouraging.
Your thoughts are welcome, guys, at 314-436-7900, 1-800-925-1120. I lived in Columbia, Missouri, right out of college when I was a kid. And, I was 22 years old. And I remember I was this young kid. I had an opinion, and I was doing a music radio show with Mark Reardon, by the way. And there's a bad neighborhood with projects in Columbia, Missouri. And it's largely populated by African Americans. And I remember there was a story of a young couple, and on their wedding night, they had a wedding reception at someone's home, and the groom was murdered. They got in a fight, and they was murdered. And I made the mistake in 1991 or so of saying that there's a crisis in the African American community. More than a generation has passed, and things have only gotten worse. You still have the number of children born out of wedlock in the African American community as high as 70, 80% in the inner city. You've got crime rates. I just quoted just some statistics. You've got the abortion rate. Just absolutely half of black babies are being killed before they're born. Bad schools, bad families, and we just continue this. And then we get another case of a police officer going after a guy who rams a police car, drives off, has a gun, heroin dealer, has a history of illegal firearm ownership. And this is a distraction from the real problems of the inner city. That's it. It's a distraction. It's a blame. It's a, don't look at this. We're fine. We're not, but let's go ahead and blame the police on it. And let's blame white privilege on it. That's another thing. We're going to blame white privilege on it. And we're going to blame white supremacy now. It's white supremacy. Even though, like my son, I've got a kid, he's 17 years old, never had a racist thought in his life. Most of his friends are different races. He's entering a world in academia, for instance, getting ready to go to college next year, where he is a white supremacist, and he has white privilege. I got to tell you, you got to see my life to see white privilege don't exist. Not in my life, anyway. Sharon is on the line. Hello, Sharon, and welcome to News Radio 1120 KMOX.
Yes. Well, I've been listening to this whole thing, and I'm very tired of this whole thing with this on and on with these protests and stuff. Why don't they do something constructive, like take care of their community? I know the Supreme Court, we have this right to protest if we have freedom of speech and all that, but maybe it's time to put some kind of perimeters on how far you can take it. Because it seems like they're not working the jobs, but they're stopping everybody else from getting to their job or their business, being worried about them being burned out or, damaged or killed or something. Yeah. Why don't they get a job? Why don't they do something constructive?
Why don't they become a big brother or a big sister to an African-American child whose father isn't there?
Exactly. And, on that point, I want to say something. The Brown, the Ferguson thing, and this heroin dealer that, poor Shotley, he wind up trying to go into a situation. I would like them to put themselves in the position of going up to a dark car or somebody's led a chase. How would they feel? Wouldn't they be a little apprehensive? I mean, they're trying to talk to this person. Yeah, but they're not setting a good example for the younger generation to come up.
All right, Sharon, listen, Sharon, I got to run. I'm wicked way late. We've got Bob coming up. Eric, guys, hold on. Thank you for the call, Sharon. Do appreciate it. Your thoughts are welcome. 314-436-7900, 1-800-925-1120. I'm Rob Carson on News Radio 1120 KMOX. Protests. Tonight we had WGM protests. I don't know if you knew about this. White Guilt Matters. This down at the Billy Joel concert. White people got together and chanted, "White silence is violence and no justice, no profits." They want to close down businesses and make people suffer who have nothing to do with this tomfoolery. We have Bob. Bob has been nice enough to wait. Bob was at the Billy Joel concert. Hello and welcome to News Radio 1120 KMOX.
Hey, Rob. How are you?
I'm glorious, my brother. I'm on KMOX.
Yeah, I was at the Billy Joel concert tonight in Busch Stadium.
Yes.
It was pretty good.
Yeah.
Rob, you know how they got two great big giant screens on each side of the stage?
Yeah.
Well, it seemed like these were the screens were like checkered out, and to where you couldn't get the full screen effect. And the only thing I could figure out was I think they were supposed to be like a New York skyline.
Really?
Because Billy Joel's like from New York.
Yes.
But it looked kind of dumb to me.
Have you ever? By the way, this is great to be off topic. I love this. I mean, but have you ever seen Billy Joel in concert?
Oh yeah, I've seen him once before at the old Busch Stadium when he played here with Elton John.
Oh, I see. I saw him with Elton John and Billy Joel, by the way, as well.
Yeah,
a couple of times.
When I was like out in the lobby area, I've seen all the African American beer vendors making lots of money and getting tips, and I've seen all the African American women getting concessions and getting tips.
Yeah.
Now they would have got the same things if they wouldn't have canceled the U2 concert and the Scott Trade.
Amen.
It's like they took money out of their own pockets.
Thank you very much. You know what? They just like to wreck the place. They just white silence is violence and no justice, no profits, which means people who make profits, small businesses and their employees, get screwed because you're throwing a temper tantrum because you don't agree with the judge's verdict. Let's grab real quick. I think we have Sherry. Hello, Sherry in St. Charles, and welcome to News Radio 1120 KMOX.
I just want to say it's going to get to the point where people are not, I guess it would be white people, we're not going to want to go down into the city because it's going to be always chaotic.
Well, Sherry, it's not white people. It's anybody who doesn't want to be harassed, doesn't want to be possily victimized. Doesn't matter what color you are. Go ahead.
Well, I feel it's to the point where it may be the color because, if whites are down there now saying that if there's silence from you, you're part of the violence, it's like, or you're being violent with your silence. It's like, wait a minute, I don't want that guilt. The blacks need to just stop doing the thug stuff and they won't be caught in altercations with police. You can't run the streets and live on the streets and not expect the streets to destroy you. That's the law of the jungle. That's how it works.
Well, Sherry, Sherry, real quick. This is a movement that started in Ferguson and has allowed the left in this country to blossom in ways we never thought possible. Right now, they are equating speech with violence on campus. This group tonight said that white silence, if you do not agree with them with regard to this verdict by a judge, which I agree with, you are committing an act of violence, which means that your silence is violence, so it should be met with violence. That's what this means to me, Sherry. Go ahead.
And that's crazy.
Insane.
It's like they're trying to guilt us into, well, you need to be out here in the streets with us. And if you're not, then, you're for what the cops did. I'm for law and order. And like you said, it started with the heroin deal in front of Church's Fried Chicken. That's where it all kicked off. With Michael Brown, it started with, walking out in the middle of the street. There are sidewalks, but people
and assaulting a convenience store worker and committing a crime. Listen, Sherry, I got to go. John is a protester. I want to get with you, John. Hang on, dude. I don't have time to get with you. I'm going to get with you after the top of the hour. Okay. Your thoughts on this and other things, and I would like to actually get to other things, maybe in the last hour. We'll just see what happens. 314-436-7900 or 1-800-925-1120. Okay? We're going to get to this. I'm Rob Carson. You are listening to News Radio 1120 KMOX. Rob Carson filling in on News Radio 1120 KMOX. An honor and a privilege to be here. Thank you very much for joining me on the show, and thank you very much to Steve Moore, my buddy, who is the program director of this radio station, for rolling the dice and putting me on the air. Anyway, the number here, guys, 314-436-7900, 1-800-925-1120. Real quick, I'm a talk show host, audio and video podcaster, and nationally syndicated comedy writer. If you ever listen to Rush Limbaugh, I started writing for Rush right out of college in Northwest Missouri State as a kid in about 1990. And so if you've ever listened to his show, I've written a good deal of his satire. I think comedy is important when you're trying to make a point. Like I mentioned earlier tonight, we had white people getting together to protest this whole Stockley verdict, and they tried to disrupt the Billy Joel concert. And you don't get in the way of white people going to see Billy Joel. It'd be like trying to get in the way of a Nickelback concert or Josh Groban. When white people are going, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. Anyway, many things to discuss. We've obviously been talking about the tumult going on in the city of St. Louis. And I do want to talk to John in St. Louis. He was a protester who was arrested on Friday. John, you've been nice enough to hold, my brother. Thank you so much. I do appreciate it. And welcome to News Radio 1120 KMOX. Your thoughts, my friend.
Thank you very much. Well, the first thing I want to say is to your callers and everything tonight, this show has been so one-sided, so stereotyped. It is ridiculous to even listen to this tonight. A lot of your callers are calling in and talking about black people this, black people that. Let me ask you a question. How do you know that everybody that went to this Billy Joel concert tonight was white? Okay? I don't know that.
John,
you don't know that.
I'm using humor to make a point. I think if you look through the average black person's record collection, Billy Joel, not high on the list. I could be wrong, but I'm being funny, John. Go ahead.
Okay. Secondly, too, and I think our government, our city government, has a lot to blame in everything that's going on in North St. Louis because of over the years of the building decays, Paul McKee buying buildings over in North St. Louis, not doing anything with it. City of St. Louis purchasing empty lots, not doing anything with that. No economic development over there. We have not had a government to go over there, bring in possibly any nonprofit organizations, mental health, substance abuse. Where do people have to turn over in North St. Louis? They have nowhere to turn. And our government right now in the city is no help.
John,
our city police department is the most racist department ever.
I'm not going to go with you there on that.
Well,
no, John. Stop. I'm going to pot him down.
Go ahead.
John, I'll pot you down if you don't let me talk.
Go ahead.
Who runs St. Louis? Republicans or Democrats?
Right now, Democrats do, and they have run them since 1941.
Thank you. So, do you put anything on that? Not only that party, but the system of governance that it has put in place. And I don't want to be. John, listen,
Okay.
I don't want to argue with you, man.
Oh, no. I'm not going to argue, but let me tell you a thing.
I want to reach an accord here, but there's been a party in charge of this city and cities around the country, and they all have a D in front of them. Go ahead.
Last mayor's race. I did not like Lyda Crewson. There was nobody else on the ballot. I am a Democrat, and it's the first time in my life I ever voted Republican because I did not want Lyda Crewson in there. Not because she was a Democrat, just because I did not like her style, and I do not think that she has any backbone in this city. If you've noticed, Lewis Reed's been the one on TV a lot, saying a lot of things and doing a lot of things while she sits back on her video and sending out these letters. I mean, she has not come out to the people to talk. You know, why don't you come out of City Hall and talk to these people? Let me tell you, I was arrested down there on Friday afternoon.
Yeah, I heard about this. You were arrested as a protest. What happened? What
it
happened?
was is I was on my way to go home anyway, and somebody started jumping on a police car, okay?
Yeah.
I don't condone any of this bashing in windows, hurting businesses, or anything like that, okay? That's not right. So as I was watching that, I was getting ready to go ahead and leave. Well, all of a sudden, bike cops came in. The guys with the shields came in and everything. They just start throwing mace all over the place. Well, I got mace in my eyes. I couldn't really see anything, you know, to try to get out of the area, which they were asking people to leave the area, which I would have dispersed. But I couldn't see get out because of the heavy use of the mace. And that's when I was arrested. And let me tell you, when I was in jail over there, there was a black man who was brought in jail over there. And evidently they didn't get fingerprints off him. He had nothing to do with the protest. He was, I guess, arrested on something else that was going on. So the white police officer went into the cell and said, I need to get your fingerprints. Well, the guy had a little something to drink. Okay. Well, first thing a person should use is common sense and say, hey, you know, I'll come back later. No, he said, we're going to get the fingerprints now. Well, we had a few things to say about that. Yeah, me and about 2 other white people in jail that was arrested in the protest, and one guy from India. And so you know what the white cop says? He says, don't listen to those white people over there. They're just blowing off steam.
Well, when a police officer asks you and tells you that you need your fingerprints, you need to comply.
Well, I mean, there's a time that you should comply, and there's a time that, you know, the guy's going to be like, no, and maybe get violent or something like that.
Did he get violent?
Well, no, he didn't get violent, but it could have happened. The man had something to drink. But I think, like I say, and I'm not going to argue or anything like that, but I think our government, and I take offense to the person, I think 3 callers ago, that started talking about our St. Louis City public school system. Calvin Adams, I think, has done a splendid job with what he's had to work with here in the city. And I think he's really one of the most underrated people here in the city of St. Louis. And he does not get enough credit for our
John, let me ask you about the problems in the African American community.
Okay.
The breakdown of the African American family, the crime rate. Mm-hmm. How do we address that, dude? How do we? Because that's gigantic. Come on, John.
I'll tell you what. You're going to need social workers. You're going to need nonprofits. You're going to need mental health. And, you know, the government right now is giving no assistance on mental health.
I just don't think government's going to do it, John.
Substance abuse is a big thing. And where do people have to turn? I mean, come on. Now, I mean,
you can't rely on the government, John. You've already said the Democrat. Stop.
Go ahead.
You've already said the Democrat government is failing. And now you're saying that the African American family that is broken and all these issues needs to turn to government. John, we've got to find a way for people to come together. Can we agree on that?
Oh, yeah, I agree 100% on that, but I just don't agree with a lot of your callers, because I don't think a lot of your callers that have called in tonight have lived in economic depression. I guess I would be considered as low-income white trash to some people.
Well, I've been there.
You know, and I've lived in some of the worst black neighborhoods here in St. Louis.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm pretty adverse to the scene down here in the city of St. Louis. I've lived here 51 years.
John, listen, I gotta go. I apologize.
Okay.
Do me a favor. Write me at carsonontheradio@gmail.com. Real quick, what does it feel like to get sprayed with pepper spray? How bad is that?
Well, you know, it's not a good thing. It starts hitting your respiratory system, and I tell you, those eyes really kind of.
I love my hot peppers, but I don't want to spray it in my face. John, God bless you. Thanks for calling, my friend. I do appreciate it. Again, write me on carsonontheradio@gmail.com, and I appreciate your phone call. Your thoughts are welcome here, guys. 314-436-7900, 1-800-925-1120. I'm Rob Carson on News Radio 1120 KMOX. Joining me tonight, guys, it's been really cool to talk to you, and we've had many many calls, obviously talking about what's going on in St. Louis with regard to another protest, another shooting of a police officer, of a black man. And I've enjoyed the conversation. I agree with the judge's decision because I read it. But there have been a lot of protests, and I don't understand why you want to wreck your city. I don't understand why people want to show up and say, no justice, no profits. I don't understand why you want to go to the Galleria and interrupt shopping. It's nothing to do with those vendors. They're all sitting there going, what the hell? You know, I don't understand. I've got a restaurant here. I'm trying to make a living. I didn't do this. I don't know. There's some things that are very misguided about this. And there's many things that are just not getting better. And that is the African-American situation in inner cities across the country. I want to mention the things before we get to a call from Clavin on the show. I saw this piece after the Stockley decision. This was in I believe, the Post. And the Reverend Clinton Stansel of Wayman AME Church in St. Louis told Reuters, "We haven't made any progress since Ferguson. That's clear. Cops can still kill us with impunity." Well, here's the problem. This shooting happened years before Ferguson, and the progress hasn't been made with regard to the African-American community and crime. That's the thing. And I saw that, and I was like, can we just address the crisis? Can we just come together and save kids? Can we just come together and peacefully come together, black and white? And if kids don't have dads, maybe become big brothers. If, how many African-American kids are in foster care? Do you have any idea? It's gigantic. And did you realize that 25% of them will leave foster care never having a forever family? Did you know that? What kind of hope for that? What do you got? What kind of hope is that? Now, I know Clavin has been holding for a while. Clavin has been nice enough to hold. And welcome to News Radio 1120 KMOX. I'm Rob Carson. Your thoughts, my friend, go.
How are you, Mr. Carson? Good morning to you.
I'm glorious. Good morning, sir.
All righty, just getting off work here, so just glorious chance to get in call with you real quick.
Yes, sir.
I want to get you away. I know you wanted to get away from Anthony Lamar Smith. Let me go in 2 seconds back to Michael Brown in Ferguson. You had him assaulting a police officer. Yeah. So let's fast forward. I'm in South St. Louis. Let's fast forward to a few weeks ago. You had a white couple out of Sunset Hills who led police on a police chase, and the male in the car shot at police. You see the pictures all over the internet of the bullets at the police officer's window as he's driving. They crashed down the road in Cronlett Park. The female assaults the police officer. She's still living. The driver tries to kill the police officer. He's still living. Yet you have Anthony Lamar Smith, who allegedly had a gun. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. I don't care about that. But my question is, why are they still alive when they tried to take out a police officer? And Anthony Lamar Smith, countless other black suspects, white suspects, Devin Gulliford, Keith Vidal, those guys are still alive. Or those guys are dead. But these
Clavin, I think there are a lot of moving parts to these things. I don't know if you were listening this morning to Mr. Brennan. He was talking about how the number of white people killed by police in the country
is dramatically more than I get that. I get that, but you have a clear cut, and I'm not trying to argue with you. I'm one to listen, so I love that. That's why I want to call. Get expert opinion, so to speak, because some of my friends on Facebook, one in particular, he kind of doesn't want to talk about that, but he's heavy into the police killing blacks. My thing is, like I said, these guys actually shot at a police officer. Yeah, you had the guy that was killed on 55 a few weeks ago. Yeah. But why didn't they fear for their lives enough to kill this driver who shot at you and tried to kill you, and this woman who assaulted your partner and tried to hurt him too? But yet Michael's gone. Lamar Smith is gone. Devin Gulliford's gone. Keith Vidal, a couple others.
Sure. Well, like I said, in the country, twice as many people are killed by white people are killed by police than black people. This despite the fact, and I read you the numbers earlier. I mean, the numbers are, dude, check this out. I mean, interracial violence, 660,000 crimes, 2013. Blacks were perpetrators in 85% of the time. So, maybe this is something we need to work on together, that maybe police officers, when they're entering a situation in a bad neighborhood, know that, because the larger number, by gigantic percentages, are committed by African Americans. I don't know if this had anything to play with it. Like I said, Clavin, there are a lot of moving parts in this. I don't know if you can immediately say these people needed to die because they were in kind of a similar situation, or if this Anthony Smith thing was different. I'd have to look at both of them.
Yeah,
okay.
But what I'm saying is this driver legitimately shot at police either before the chase or after the chase. He's still living, so there's no fear of a gun, because it's known that this person already had a gun. He just tried to shoot at you, and they let him on the high-speed chase. The guy was a felon as well. I know a lot of people like to throw numbers of who commits crime. I don't care about that. It is what it is,
Well, I do care about it. It's very important, but go ahead.
Mm-hmm. I was gonna say I've lost 2 people to heroin, so it's like some of my friends on Facebook will say everybody was for the shoot your local heroin dealer until a cop does it, But I'm just curious as to why these people who legitimately tried to kill a cop, they're still alive, and the others,
like I said, you're looking at twice as many white people being shot at police. Let's look at every instance if we're going to do it, Clavin. You can't just say immediately black, white. That's the issue. Can I ask you, Clavin, real quick? And bless you for calling me. I do appreciate it. What do we do about the ills in the African community, African American community in the inner city? And what do you sound like a successful dude? You're making it. What do you say to the people who are struggling so much, and how do we help them?
For them to look inside themselves and ask them where they want to, lead their lives. We have 2 targets on our back, and I'm not saying me, because I grew up around the drugs. I grew up around, bad people that did this and that, but I chose not to do that. But what I'm saying is we have 2 targets. We have targets from the police, but those are mostly your criminals. That's 3% of society, just like everybody's going out doing the rioting or the looting or the protest. Yes. That's 3% of society that people are afraid of, And then, like I said, you got 2 targets. You got the police, and then you got, the hoodlums. And then the caller a few minutes ago, said the black thug problem, when thug is a ruffian or a criminal. So child abuse, drug abuse, any of that is a crime as well. So those people will be thugs as well. I have a problem with the word thug being used just toward blacks.
Hey, listen, Clavin, bless you, my friend. Thanks for the call tonight. I do appreciate your input, and I hope we can find a solution. I really do, man. And I think a lot of it has to do with not only just blaming the police, but fixing, raising kids who can have hope, all right, regardless of your color. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. 314-436-7900. Running late here. 1-800-925-1120. I'm Rob Carson on KMOX. Stick around, guys. Really, really cool tonight, guys. I'm going to tell you. Loaded phones. Really, really cool opinions from folks, whether you agree or disagree with the protests that are happening in St. Louis again. Just really, it's been a real pleasure to exchange some ideas with you. All I ask is that, can we just have another generation, particularly of African-American kids, who can grow up and live the American dream? Okay? That's all I want. Honestly, that's all I want. I just want every kid in the country to live the American dream. That's it. That's all I want to say. That's all I want to say. I've got a couple of interesting things I think you're going to enjoy here. I've got a statistic about the king of beers, Budweiser. Oh, this is really cool, actually. I'm going to share the details on that coming up in a few. Also, sorority apparently singing the lyrics of a Kanye West song. I don't listen to Kanye West. Nothing against rap. That's cool. I'm just more of a rock guy. But some white girls were singing Gold Digger. And there's a lyric in Gold Digger that is about black people. And it sounds like Digger. It's in the lyrics. but I guess because these girls are white, they can't sing the lyrics of the song. Okay, all right. It's the lyrics of the song. Kanye West has no problem with white girls downloading the song, but you just can't sing the lyrics if it's the N-word. It's just absurdity. Dear God in heaven. Oh, did I mention you can follow me on Facebook at Rob Carson Show? I also do a podcast every day, and it is available on iTunes, iHeartRadio, a bunch of other sites. You millennials know what TuneIn and Player FM and what else? Gosh, I'm on everything. Google Play, Google Plus. Just look up Rob Carson Show. All right? It's all over the place. You hear about this rigmarole? It's a rigmarole is what it is. What is a rigmarole? This little fight or, tiff, Jimmy Kimmel with Republican Senator Bill Cassidy about this Cassidy-Graham Obamacare replacement proposal. And I heard Reardon talking about this today. And I am a big fan of late-night television, although I don't get a chance to watch a lot of it. Like most of us, I live in the burbs. I fall asleep on the couch. Late-night television has been a big part of my life, and the reason why, and I'll just be honest, I use the name Carson for a reason, because Johnny Carson was my idol when I was growing up, you see. Johnny Carson, I used the name. I was asked when I was a kid in Columbia, Missouri, right out of college. They said, you need a radio name. I said, I don't know what the hell. I'll do Carson. My real name's Schwarzenegger. Anyway, Johnny Carson was not political. Jay Leno was not political. Steve Allen, not political. There were a lot of people in late-night television, the people who laid the groundwork for late-night television, and late-night television exists. Dick Cavett was political. I get it. That was kind of an artsy-fartsy, cappuccino-sipping TV show. I don't really remember it. I was a little kid. But Carson, Johnny Carson, yes, the great Carsoni. He was one of my idols. And I think it's an insult that Colbert has become such a political tool. We've seen some flashes of this from Fallon. Who's the guy, the fat guy who's on late at night, has everybody sing in the car? James Corden. I like James Corden. He's funny as hell. He did an It parody the other day. Just hilarious. I posted it on Facebook. But Kimmel has decided to get into a pissing match, with this Republican senator. And I think it's an insult to late night TV. It shouldn't be happening. It's not his purview. I realize his kid had a heart defect that was fixed at birth, and then he has a problem with the taking away Obamacare. But this, to me, is not late-night television. Here's a little bit of his monologue yesterday about this.
I had an interesting day today, I'll tell you. So last night on our show, I took a senator from Louisiana, Bill Cassidy. I took him to task for promising to my face that he would oppose any health care plan that allowed insurance companies to turn people with pre-existing conditions away, and any health care plan that had an annual or lifetime cap on how much they would pay out for medical care. He said anything he supported would have to pass what he named the Jimmy Kimmel test, which was fine. It was good. But unfortunately and puzzlingly, he proposed a bill that would allow states to do all the things he said.
I'm not hearing a punchline yet. This is late night TV. There should be some sort of a punchline.
He would not let them do.
Yeah.
He made a total about face, which means he either doesn't understand his own bill or he lied to me. It's as simple as that. So,
oh, my God. Somebody might have lied to Jimmy Kimmel.
Today, it was a bad morning for Senator Cassidy. He and his co-sponsor, Lindsey Graham, spent the morning defending the indefensible. This morning, the senator sat for an interview with Chris Cuomo of CNN. And
okay. Again, this is not the purview of late night TV. Am I wrong? Am I wrong? I'd love to know your thoughts. 314-436-7900, 1-800-925-1120. When I heard Mark Reardon's show today, it was more about addressing the issues Kimmel had with it. My issue, as someone who not only is a commentator, but also an entertainer, I don't care what Jimmy Kimmel has to say about the frickin' Cassidy Graham Obamacare repeal. To me, make me laugh. Make me laugh.
Maybe I don't understand the part of your bill in which federal funding disappears completely after 2026, or maybe it was the part where the plans are no longer required.
Go on a radio show. Go on Facebook. Go on Twitter. But don't bring this to me if I'm trying to watch a show normally where you do goofy bits and you have pop culture interviews.
To pay for essential health benefits like maternity care or pediatric visits, or the part where the American Medical Association, the American College of Physicians, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Hospital Association, the American Cancer Society.
Okay, that's great. Jeez, really. And Kimmel is my generation. We're Gen Xers, okay? But this is not the venue for it. Do you want to hear this? Do you want to hear this? I don't want to hear this. It's not saying it has to be mindless, but comedy and late night TV, that's what it is. If you want to do an opinion show, go for it. Now, here's where he actually threatened Brian Kilmeade from Fox and Friends. Kilmeade talks at the beginning of this.
Sunday's politically charged Emmys may have been the lowest rated in history, but that's not stopping Hollywood elites like comedian Jimmy Kimmel for pushing their politics on the rest of the country. Watch.
Thanks, Brian. That was Brian Kilmeade. And the reason I found this comment to be particularly annoying is because this is a guy, Brian Kilmeade, who whenever I see him, kisses my ass like a little boy meeting Batman.
Who cares?
Oh, he's such a fan. I think he's been to the show. He follows me on Twitter. He asked me to write a blurb for his book, which I did. He calls my agent looking for projects. He's dying to be a member of the Hollywood elite. The only reason he's not a member of the Hollywood elite is because nobody will hire him to be one. And, the reason I'm talking about this is because my son had an open heart surgery and has to have 2 more. And because of that, I learned that there are kids with no insurance in the same situation.
Yeah, and by the way, those kids, if they were born in the same situation, would have received the same life-changing and life-saving surgery, regardless of insurance. That's the way it works in this country, particularly if you're familiar with the Children's Miracle Network system of hospitals. Okay, great. You've got the money, Mr. Kimmel. You don't need insurance.
Get anything out of this, Brian, you phony little creep. Oh, I'll pound you when I see you.
Yeah, I doubt that. You're not such a big deal. One more thing he did was he gave the numbers of senators, which to me, again, all I'm saying is that this guy is a late night entertainer. And now, like Stephen Colbert, he has become a political tool.
Please stop texting for 5 seconds and make a phone call, especially call these senators. These are their numbers right there on the screen. If you live in one of these states, call them. It really does make a difference. And who knows, maybe you'll meet somebody over the phone and fall in love.
Oh, my God, he actually said something kind of funny. I'm sorry. Just as a defender of late night TV, somebody who has grown up watching the greats, I just think there's no place for this. You may disagree. We've got some other things I want to share with you before the end of the radio program, including something you didn't know about the King of Beers. Okay, it's number 1 on the list. I'm going to share what that is coming up. Your thoughts welcome, 314-436-7900, 1-800-925-1120. I'm Rob Carson on News Radio 1120 KMOX. News Radio 1120 KMOX. The numbers here, 314-436-7900, 1-800-925-1120. It's been a joy to be here tonight. If you get a chance to check out, I do a podcast on iTunes, iHeartRadio, a bunch of sites daily. It's called The Rob Carson Show Podcast. It's about 45 minutes. And we cover not only politics, but pop culture, comedy, stuff like that. Comedy. Oh, my gosh, you can actually laugh. I'm a libertarian-leaning conservative. I just think we ought to be able to laugh, right? Should we be able to laugh at stuff, everything? If I get a chance, I might play you a couple of bits that I've done recently that I think you might enjoy. Hold on, let me see. Original comedy. Yeah, we'll see what happens. So I had mentioned the King of Beers. King of Beers, number 1 on a list. What do you suppose that is? What do you suppose it is? Would you believe the world's gassiest beers? This is great. This guy is Dr. Stuart Fairmont has revealed which beers contain the most CO2, which, by the way, is a greenhouse gas and is causing global warming. So if you are drinking Budweiser, you are destroying the country, or the world, actually, with your global warming, because you're belching, and it's CO2. But seriously, a Bud versus a Bud Light. Think about that. Those of you who have done both, you know what I'm talking about. Bud has the big bubbles. Bud causes the burn going down the throat, right? And then you do the brrr. You do half a Bud, just a 12-ounce can. You're going to be able to do the alphabet. You can. But Budweiser, you know it's full of CO2. It is. Here are the gassiest beers in the world. This is so cool. Guinness Golden Ale, which I just heard about. I just heard about this the other day. Number 10. Cobra Indian Lager. Never had it. It's number 9. Fastest Lager. Australian for beer. Number 8. I should go to Outback Steakhouse. Number 7 is Pilsner Urquell. That's the one you want to be fashionable drinking. That's super. Heineken skunk beer drank in college. That's number 6. John Smith's Bitter. I haven't had that. That's number 5. Number 4, gassiest beer in the world, Bud Light. Bud Light, number 4. But come on, you know the difference between a Bud and a Bud Light. When you drink it, you're like, because like I said, the burn, there's more CO2. You can tell. Corona Extra is number 3. Stella Artois is tied with Coors Light. Why even try to drink beer? Coors Light. Whew. Lord. Number 1, Budweiser. Gassiest beer. Gassiest beer. There you go. Oh, this is a story. We're all so offended by everything. One Utah school district, they got a new school going in, high school, Corner Canyon High School. They wanted the kids decided they wanted to make the cougar a mascot. And a lot of cats, mountain cats around there. They're popular in Utah, the cougar. Well, the school board decided that the use of the word cougar was sexually aggressive toward middle-aged women who attract younger men. So their reason for being offended and changing is more offensive. My wife is, she's few years younger than me, in her 40s. And if she was attracted to a younger man, she'd be called a cougar. She always thought that was offensive. And now these guys are saying you can't call it cougar because it's offensive to women. Wow. I mean, my Lord, have we just circled the wagons on this idiotic, offended thing? I'll do one more parody here real quick. One parody before I go. This is about the getting rid of Confederate statues and monuments and the Columbus statues. Real quick here before I go. A new product. The Mr. Clean Magic Eraser is known for removing the most difficult stains from walls, floors, or just about anywhere. But what about the stains on our country's history? Mr. Clean certainly won't let that stand, and that's why there's the Mr. Clean Magic History Eraser. Got a Confederate memorial? Simply use your Mr. Clean Magic History Eraser, and presto, it's gone. Everybody knows Christopher Columbus ushered in mass genocide. With Mr. Clean Magic History Eraser, it's like he never even lived. Got some offensive text in a history book? Mr. Clean will sanitize it like it's a freshly cleaned toilet. Mr. Clean Magic History Eraser uses patented ADWD technology. That's any dead white guy. It hones in on the dead white guy, targets and removes him, no discussion, no debate, no questions asked. And Mr. Clean Magic History Eraser even works at night on those statues in the courthouse square. And don't forget, he even works on holidays like Columbus Day and soon, maybe even Christmas. Mr. Clean Magic History Eraser. Mr. Clean Magic Inoffensive History Replacer, sold separately. Okay, time for me to go, guys. Check out my podcast on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Rob Carson Show. On Facebook, Rob Carson Show, and on Twitter at Rob Carson. Thank you very much, Steve Moore. Thank you very much, Ben. Thank you very much, Mike, for helping out today. Have a glorious evening. Go Cards, and I hope to see you soon